Hello and welcome to the 11th episode of Beyond the Present podcast. I'm Dan, and I'm here joined by Poujix live from Canada. Hey there, my man. How's it going?
Everything's awesome. Thanks for having me.
It's great. And, of course, we have Kanny back. Kanny, buddy, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me again.
It's a pleasure to have you both on board because today we're talking about something new, which is called certainly trying to actually look for novelties, novelty seeking, and trying new things, all of that sort. So first, let's start with Poujix. Poujix, tell me honestly, are you into, let's say, novelty seeking? Do you like to try new things all the time, or you tend to be more conservative?
No, I do like new things. I just get bored very easily, so I do have to have new things in my life. That's sort of a necessity. But then,
you are a novelty seeker. Let's be honest. If you get bored so quickly,
yeah,
that's right. And are you like
that's perfectly
in everything or in certain things?
No, of course, in some things probably more than others, but overall, I think I could classify myself as a novelty seeker for sure.
Interesting. And let's move on to Kanny. Kanny, are you also a novelty seeker?
For sure. I try to try new things in most of the on my day-to-day things that I do. For example, food is one example where I get to try different cuisines, and being in a city like Toronto is so different, and it's just a beauty to just try different things out there, and that just the boredom is taken out, and you're more looking forward and excited to try new things.
Interesting. So you both mentioned that you would like to try new things, and with you, Kanny, you said you like to try new foods. But right now, let us talk about this whole issue of getting bored too quickly. So, Poujix, you said I get bored quickly. What does it even mean exactly? Why do you get bored so quickly?
Well, that's a good question. I don't probably have a very good answer for it, but then what it means is that after a certain point, for example, a repetitive activity with absolutely nothing added to it, I'll just lose interest somehow, unless I have a specific goal for that task that I have to achieve. So, for example, it's my job or something. That's obviously a different story. It can still get boring, but that's you'll still do it nevertheless. But then. What the reason for that is, I don't know, perhaps because I'm looking for something, I'm always striving for more, and after a certain point that I got the whole of the task, I understood it completely, it just becomes redundant, and I feel like, not that it's not necessary anymore, but then how can we spice it up a little bit?
Interesting. Maybe. Kanny, you like to try different foods, but is that the only thing you like to try, or there are other things as well? And more importantly, why do you do so?
I think it really comes down to the values that you follow in your life. And if you think about a successful person, if they achieved that level in their life, they don't just stop there. They have to keep trying. They have to keep trying different things, in the sense that if you get too comfortable, then that is not going to help you anymore. And I think having that mindset where you're always striving to change things, and this is where the creativity comes in. That's right. Where you're always trying to, find novel ways of doing the same thing, and that again comes from the more time you spend with a certain issue or certain problem that you're having. Your mind is going to find creative ways to solve that problem.
Interesting. You see, guys, I am both for and against novelty seeking. And let me explain to you why. You see, I am for novelty seeking because I really believe that we have to leave the comfort zone, as Kanny mentioned here, because ultimately if you're doing the same thing over and over again, perhaps you're not exploring all your other options, and you probably are within a very tight comfort zone. On the other hand, I'm a huge fan of acquiring mastery. And as we all know, mastery requires lots and lots of repetition for a very long time. In many other areas of life, things could get quite repetitive, and if you want to get good results, you got to repeat those things. This is true in finance. I mean, you cannot, from my perspective, that's what I've realized over the years. There are some entrepreneurs who like to try new things all the time, and they tend to get good results. But generally, the majority of success in the field of business and entrepreneurship usually come from those who tend to have that hustle mindset, who tend to have that marathon mindset of trying things again and again and again and again. So right now, let's try to go for arguments for both sides. That is the pros and cons of being a novelty seeker and wanting to try new things all the time. So let's start first with all the pros, because I really love myself to try new things. So Poujix, What are some of the good things that you can think about regarding the concept of novelty seeking and trying new things? What are the advantages of somebody who gets bored all the time and constantly tries new things? What's good about that kind of lifestyle and approach towards living?
Well, in a very general sense, you get to, when you're, for example, if that person is your friend and you're hanging out with a guy or gal, it can be very entertaining. So, like, think about it. A lot of, like, the comedians or a lot of those kind of people are very novel, original people. They always come up with something new, and for the sake of funny stuff, if something gets repetitive, it's not funny anymore. It's at a certain point. So yeah, there are a lot of benefits in specific fields, but in general, I think the fact that you can explore other options, you can come up with new ways to do stuff. It helps not just having different options, but then also coming up with better ways of doing those things. So those are the general, in a general sense, in every field, you can basically progress with novelty. You just sometimes it fails, you do something new and it fails, but sometimes it doesn't, and you get a good results and good product.
Interesting. It's all about progress. Kanny, why is it so good to constantly try new things? Why are you for novelty seeking?
I think it generates a better mindset. For example, if say you take a train to work, but that is not working a certain day, and you might just think, okay, I don't have any other options, but if you can bike instead, then you're trying a new thing. The idea here is you're trying different things, not because they're new things, but you're actually motivated to try different things, and in seeking these new things, you're also interested and motivated to learn different things. Because the fact of the matter is, unless you don't try anything, you won't even know how you like those things.
Interesting. And you gotta try it. Continue.
Right, and it's really simple. The more you try, the more mistakes you're gonna make, but you're also gonna learn from those. But again, like, trying new things come down to so many different things you can do in your life. You can try new experiences. You can try new ways of doing a certain thing. So it really comes down to that mindset, in my opinion.
Very well. So I appreciate that mindset, and I do believe that if you want to expand your horizon and your comfort zone, you need to constantly try new things. However, let's now start off with the other side of the aisle, which is an argument against this whole novelty-seeking thing. Because let's be honest, guys, if you want to be a master, I mean, just right now imagine somebody goes to the medical school and after 6 or 7 years says, you know what? I've tried this thing for 7 years, dude. I'm tired. And he will just give up and try a new career. And then he goes to another career and says, you know what? I'm kind of tired of being in real estate. Let's try something else. So from that perspective, also, if you're always getting bored and you cannot get anything done, then the whole cycle of mastery is interrupted and you can never reach mastery in any field because you get bored. I mean, my personal experience in anything, think of a foreign language. Like, you start learning a specific language, and afterwards, you know what? I'm kind of tired of this tongue. Let's move on to another one, right? So let's now talk about how novelty seeking can affect the acquisition of mastery in any field. Because let's be honest, if you're always trying new things, then you are not repeating things enough to acquire mastery. So, Poujix, what do you think about this argument?
Yeah, of course, that's a good point. I mean, it has nothing. I don't think it necessarily has something to do with novelty. That's just, an excuse you will have to basically drop it to task that you're follow it, mastery that you're following, or something like that. But then that definitely poses a very massive danger. I think we both, me and you, Dan, we both know somebody that actually did that, the switching fields. I think, I'm not going to name names, but I think you know who I'm talking about.
I'm pretty sure I know who you're talking about. And I'm
You're right.
Sure we both know how that person ended up.
Exactly, right? So it's not, and it doesn't, like, that person in particular that we were talking about is not even happy about it, which, well, understandably, because, it's not necessarily his fault. Maybe he's confused or whatever. I don't want to get into that, but then I agree with the notion that you have to have some sort of dedication to master field that you want to basically participate in. The definition of mastery, depending on what you want to do with that field, might differ a little bit. It's not necessarily mastering everything, but doing it long enough for you to achieve something with that. And sometimes, obviously, it's not a profession. It's it's something like a hobby or something. But even that, for example, if you're playing video games, we're going to talk about games, I guess, later. But then if you're playing video games, you have to play a certain amount of time to get good at it, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, obviously there are dangers with this particular notion, but I don't think it's necessarily this guy's like Novelty's fault, but rather how we treat it or use it as an excuse.
Interesting. Good point. Kanny, how could constant novelty seeking hinder our progress towards attaining mastery?
I think the answer there would be more deeper in terms of it can be subtle if you think about it in a certain way. For example, I'll give you a quick example of, I was listening to a podcast yesterday from Robin Sharma, one of my mentors, and he talks about it's not just about mindset, but there's three other factors that play a key role in what you do in your life. There's mindset, there's heart set, and then there's health set, and then the final one is the soul set.
Wow. Would you please explain those four?
So mindset is talked about in the media a lot. There's a lot of books that are sold with a positive mindset and what you can do to try new things, achieve better results. Like it's playing on that consumer factor, right?
That's right.
With the heart set, what Robin says is that it's more about the feelings that come in the picture. Like how do you feel emotionally, and he explains how important that is in your life to be emotionally satisfied, how important it is in your life to be emotionally happy in what you're doing. If I constantly keep trying new things, thinking, it's going to make me feel better, then that's the issue here is not trying new things. The issue there is that you're not happy and you're seeking ways to be happy.
Exactly.
And
that's right.
And the issue there is inwards, not outwards. And most often than not, we would try to find new things, like go do something to feel better. At the end of the day, you just come back to square one. And then with health set, he's talking about how you have to take care of your health, like do things that would accelerate your body. The idea there is that don't die. If you want to have better life, you want to have better results, obviously you don't want to die.
So true. Good point in that regard. And you mentioned something about pathological novelty seeking. I really believe that people who are pathologically into trying new things, that is, they're always trying new things and they never stick with anything, ultimately they're actually running from themselves. There's an emotional problem underneath that is causing that person to not be happy and well in his or her own skin. So that ultimately propels him or her forward to constantly try new things, which is why I am strictly against pathological novelty seeking. And of course, people who are like this, by the way, they have high rates of alcoholism, drug addiction, and various other problems, which is why I really believe that we have to control our desire for novelty seeking and make sure that it is at a healthy level, not at a pathological level. It is a great point, and thanks for pointing out this story. So speaking of managing the whole things, I'm all for basically trying new things and whatnot. So first, you, Poujix, what are some of the things that we should do in order to not just, be a novelty seeker and try new things all the time, but also be able to pursue something meaningful and stick with it, even if it gets boring at times? Because my experience with the pursuit of mastery in any field that I've ever tried to master is that it cannot possibly always be fun and enjoyable. Inevitably, there will be sometimes some moments where you just get tired. We're just like, dude, I just don't want to do my Mandarin flashcards. I hate Chinese characters. You see, there will be those moments. You cannot escape those moments. But the point is this, from your perspective, what can we do in those moments where we're bored of trying something and we just want to try something new, but we know we have to stick with it? What is your advice in that situation?
Yeah, in particular tasks, I would say you have to look at the bigger picture. Of course, it's tedious sometimes to do, like look at flashcards or whatever. But then you basically go back to ask yourself, be mindful, first of all, to understand that this is just a temporary setback and you're going to come through. But then noticing that, then ask yourself, why am I even learning, for example, Mandarin or whatever I'm learning? Then you probably have a good answer for it. If not, then maybe you should stop doing it. But if you have a good answer for it, and if there was a solid reason that you started this endeavor, then you remind yourself of that and be like, okay, this is a big picture. I'm doing this for that purpose, and yeah, it becomes tedious at times, but then I have to go through it to get to the goal that I have in mind. So looking at the goal behind the task at the time that sometimes is tedious, definitely at least helps me to look past the pain and the boring state of that tedious task for sure.
Interesting. Kanny, what do you recommend our listeners to do when they know they should do something, but they are bored of it and they want to try something new?
I think if you are getting bored too quickly, too soon about a certain task, then I really sincerely believe that you should strongly think about why are you doing it.
Exactly.
If you're not genuinely interested in the work you do, then you would need a lot of motivation, a constant motivation, a lot of self-discipline. It's simple, but it's not easy. At the same time, people who we know who are, like actually I'll give you a quick example. Like, for example, in Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell talks about the 10,000 hour rule.
Exactly.
In terms of you have to put 10,000 hours, and that's just as estimate in terms of how you can be a master at something, and that's just the beginning, right? 10,000 hours is just the beginning, but somebody at that level would keep on putting more hours because they're genuinely interested in the work that they're doing. For example, when Bill Gates got into coding, he was exposed to it as when they got the computer machines, the mainframes in his university. And he was genuinely interested, and he was so interested that he ended up, sneaking out of the house, pulling all-nighters. His parents didn't even know, all that. And then he ended up, building Microsoft, the first company that ever, of what we know.
That's right.
And I can give you another example about Picasso, for example, when he it's known that he was painting all the way until his late career. And we all know the famous example where the lady sees him in the cafe and asks him to, or he draws something on a piece of napkin and he throws it away, and then the lady comes up to him and asks, okay, hey, can I have that? I see you throw it away, but can I have it from you? I am willing to pay you. And he said, yeah, of course. And he said $1 million.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And the lady got shocked, and then she's like, wow, it just took you 10 minutes to draw that. And he's like, yes, it took me 10 minutes, but it took me 10 years of practice to draw it in 10 minutes.
Wow. You see that? That's what I enjoy. Whenever I hear stories of mastery, I just get super excited, man. But the thing is this, that's what I think we should be doing. We need to find various sources of novelty and new things, but at the same time, we also need to stick with mastering the fields that we really find ourselves passionate about. So that's quite important, and I do agree in this regard. Now that we've talked about mastery, let's also talk about how we can actually satisfy our, let's call it, desire for novelty. So let's start first with you, Poujix. Who do you think is more into novelty seeking, men or women?
That's a good question. You put me on the spot. I have no idea.
Gotcha.
I think that's a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really field dependent too, because sometimes we are very original and look for different things in one field, but we are very conservative in the other.
Exactly.
And at least it happens for me. So just to put it simply, in terms of fashion, if you close it down to fashion itself, clothes sense, dressing up or whatever, I think you definitely have to say women.
Exactly.
Because they always try different things.
So for women, novelty seeking happens a lot with clothing and fashion. And any other thing you're famous for, by the way?
Sorry?
For women. You are now focused on women. You mentioned for women, they are famous for trying new clothes and fashion. Anything else that are famous for women? Basically, we find them to somehow do this again and again?
Not that comes to my mind.
I'm going to go say for trying different foods and dishes and various things, because every lady that I know would love to try different dishes. I don't know why. They're just crazy about it, basically.
Yeah, I know a lot of women who actually do like to try new cuisines as well. That's fair.
Interesting. So how about guys? What do guys find kind of interesting to try all the time, trying new things?
Well, it's a very simple answer to that, and that would be ladies.
Interesting. So, guys, let's talk a little about this issue. Oh, my gosh, we got a problem here right now. Okay. He's going to be pretty upset because our last episode was about feminism. Oh, my goodness. So, let's talk about this. Kanny and Poujix. Why is it that we men are famous to keep shopping around for new girls? What's the story?
Well, there's a very good, we tend to blame this on evolution, but there's a very good evolutionary reason for it, and that's basically trying to let this species keep going, keep moving. So then we have to have children to pass on our genes, to pass on our and that's how we are, like men are wired to be able to give their seeds to as many women as possible to maximize the probability. This is purely on the evolutionary side. It's not. Don't think gross, because I'm just talking about evolutionary side of it. And then on the other hand,
man, he makes everything for me easier. That's right. It's like, honey, listen to what Poujix said, man.
It reminds me of Joey.
It's all evolution, baby.
Yeah, again, I said like we have that tendency to blame evolution, but then on the other hand, women also want to find the best fit and then grab those best genes for their offspring. Anyhow, so
when it comes to trying new partners, I think men in this case are, evolutionarily speaking, more likely to want to try new things than women are.
Oh yeah, women want to find the one or two that are super, top ace of the group, and then go with them. But then men are like, I obviously I want to find those aces, but then I go for the B's and C's if I have time and energy.
Some D's just for fun. That's right. So
just for charity.
That's right. So Kanny, let me ask something. You're now in a monogamous relationship with your girlfriends. So you're a man. You obviously have certain desires when you see other women. Mm-hmm. So how do you deal with that desires that simultaneously you love your girlfriend, you want to be with her, and on the other hand, you wouldn't mind trying new girls? So how do you deal with that feeling, like this conflicting desires?
Right. I think even before I got into that relationship, I am so interested in different cultures, and I've dated girls from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different colors, and I just found.
Have you tried aliens? Blue. Not yet.
Well, I should try that.
Okay.
I didn't find those in Toronto yet. But that's just something that I consciously was making that decision. If I was attracted to somebody, maybe because I was thinking about different ethnicities, that was one reason I was getting attracted. Like with my girlfriend, like she's from a different culture, she's from a different ethnicity as well, and it's like I think it's at some point, again, like I've listened to your podcast about relationships, but I guess at some point you do have to make that decision of like, are you gonna keep it simple now, or are you gonna keep trying?
That's right. And now you want to keep it simple.
I want to keep it simple, and I think there's nothing wrong about it. It's just it's a part of life where you think about it, right? I know a lot of my friends. I'm not gonna say names, but a recent friend of mine, he was in a relationship, and he got out of it because he said, "Oh man, it was getting too boring."
Interesting. Well, this happens to a lot of the young men these days, where
exactly. Then he recently went to another country. Right. And then he recently just traveled, just like a bunch of guys trip and all that. But there's a sense of, something missing whenever I meet him. He asked me about my girlfriend, and he asked me, how's it going, all that kind of stuff. But whenever he asks that, I can see a sense of something missing in him, and that to me just feels okay, like he's trying a lot of things, but at the same time, maybe he's at that part of his life where he wants to, stick to one person and experience a lot of things with one person. Mm-hmm. I feel in my opinion that if I experience a lot of things with one person, then in my opinion, that's again, I'm saying it more from a point of view where I am in a relationship, but I would enjoy that more. I would find myself fulfilled more.
Interesting. And I would like to describe this personally. You see, for a man who has both of these conflicting desires, it's all about mastery, right? Because being with the same person again and again, day after day, week after week, month after month, this will, of course, take a lot of the romance out of it. But just like sticking with anything for long, including, let's say, a project, a business, learning a specific language, learning a new skill, the more you stay with it, the higher you acquire mastery in that level, basically, in that field. So because of this, I really believe that if you are not experiencing a long-lasting relationship with one woman, as a man, basically, you feel like something is missing. At the same time, if you're in a very loving relationship, everything is fine, and you're not, let's just say, exploring your other options, you also feel like you're missing out. And this, by the way, is a huge dilemma for many men. Like, if I'm in a relationship, I'm missing out. If I'm just moving around, shopping around, having a good time, I feel something is missing, which means we ultimately have to come to terms with this issue and find a solution. So, Poujix, what would you tell men who are currently struggling with this dilemma? On the one hand, they do want to experience something lasting, something meaningful, something at a higher level. On the other hand, of course, they feel like maybe they're missing out on some other options. So what is your solution in this case?
Well, I guess you can differ from person to person, but then we talked about it a little bit. I was sort of dealing with a similar problem, and how I came to peace with myself was, okay, I haven't explored the prerequisite avenue, meaning the first avenue, which is better to done that way, I guess. And that being, exploring different options. So I was like, I'm not really done with that. And as long as I'm not feeling, satisfied enough that, okay, this is done. I'm done, literally sleeping around, but then going around, exploring different options. I feel like even if I
sleeping around, I don't like the word sleeping around. Exploring your options. I think that seems a lot.
Exploring your options. Yeah. No, I was gonna say sleeping around.
Exploring your horizons. That's what it was.
Yeah, I was gonna say sleeping around as as a phrase, but then I was like, this is actually literally true. So, exploring your options. I think if I don't come to the conclusion that I still want to do that, I'm not at a point that I'm okay. This is done. Like, I'm done with that. I'm fine. Even if I do go quote unquote settle down for one person, I will always want to go back to that life. So I was like, what? Let's just finish this whole game of exploring options when I'm done with it, because it comes a point you're like, okay, you know what? Not that I don't want to explore other options. You always will, but then at a point you're like, okay, I'm done with this. This is good. This was good. It was a good part of my life. I'm done. Now I can think about
else. And this time, let's try to actually commit to one relationship.
Exactly. So that was my first. But then this is for the cases that people are, thinking to have this particular problem of not having explored enough. I think this will work. But in other cases, I have no experience, no clue. So I'm not going to, give any.
Very well. Kanny, how about your perspective on this?
I think in terms of trying new things, is if you fall in the category where if before sticking to one, you want to try multiple.
Before you answer my question, please know that if you want, we can actually make sure that your girlfriend will never hear this episode, so don't worry about it. It's called freedom of speech, man. Freedom of speech.
Yeah. And she knows it too, like in terms of different girlfriends that I had in the past. Like if you fall in the category of trying different things before settling on one, sure, that will satisfy your hunger. In terms of, okay, I'm just sticking to one, and to me, even if I have a friend who was in a relationship and is in a relationship since high school, I don't see anything wrong with it. It's just a matter of, what are your expectations? What do you want? If you see, most of the times, the way I look at it, most of the times, the reason we are trying so many different things is because we see others trying different things. And that's influence that we're getting in our own circle. There's no other if I have 10 people in my circle and all of them are committed, there's no reason I would go out and like just be sleeping around and like literally. But you get my point. It has to fall under the influence that you're getting to, but at the same time, I think it's important for you to know why you're doing it. For example, if I'm just going around, like trying, like if I don't have a goal, for example, even if I'm trying around and, meeting girls from different ethnicities, that is my goal. I want to learn more about that way. But if I'm just doing it for the sake of it, for the fun of it, then the moment I reach that stage, I don't know what to do.
Interesting. I will have evolution, and of course, you blame education. I like this one. It's pretty good, actually, overall. So we all have our own excuses overall. It's pretty cool.
Right. In terms of evolution, sure, it makes a lot of sense. Like men have always been known to like try different things, and in terms of relationships, in terms of having wives, for example, not being in a monogamous relationship, all of that is true, and to some extent that. Like it's not something that I think about constantly, but then I'm also thinking about like if we play evolution, then evolution is still happening in today's world, right? Evolution is going to continue happening, so the generation after us would not even think about would not even think about a relationship where things can like go in either directions. But for us, being in a monogamous relationship is something we know. For a generation after us, that's something that would be, like not even part of a dictionary. You never know.
Interesting. So ultimately, guys, as you know, I'm a fan of having a balanced approach towards life. I think that that's really the ideal approach in acquiring happiness and success. So while I am for constantly trying new things in order to expand our comfort zone, I also believe that mastery is important, and there are areas in life where you cannot necessarily expect to always try new things. There are times in your life, there are areas in your life where you need to commit to pursuing mastery in specific fields and areas. So I think the ideal approach will be to have this balance. Now we're running out of time here. So Poujix, after all that we talked today about trying new things, novelty seeking, and so on and so forth, what is now your final thought?
I would say don't sacrifice mastery for novelty. I mean, and notice that, as you mentioned, mastery is definitely very important, and you got to stick to some things for sure. If you're at the stage of your life that you want to play the novelty card to figure out what you want to master, that's perfectly fine. But then at the end of the day, notice that it has to come sooner or later. Sooner the better, obviously. And then at the same time, you understand that, like anything else, novelty can be used as a tool to justify a lot of things, to postpone things, to not do them, to skip a beat or jump between fields or whatever. So, like anything else, as good as it is, it can also be very dangerous. Novelty, I'm talking about. Be aware of that. Yeah.
Fantastic. And Kanny, what's your final comment?
I think it's important for anyone listening to understand what they want, essentially. If they're trying new things, why are they trying new things? If it genuinely excites you, then that's a different story. But if you're doing it masking something else behind it, then that's another story.
So true.
Also, breadth is good to have, but depth will take you so much ahead in life. In terms of, and this is no brainer in terms of trying different things. For example, like we all know Tim Ferriss, and he talks about like he tried a lot of things traveling in countries. He even went to a boxing competition in Brazil, I think, and he won over there.
Yes,
but
I heard about it. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, and even when he was doing it, he wasn't just trying a one day thing. He committed himself. He did put in a certain amount of time in trying different things. So I think even if you're trying new things, you have to be careful about not just like have that mentality where you just try new things all the time. Because at the end of the day, if you're not putting enough hours, if you're not putting enough of your energy, enough of your focus, trying a different thing would never be fulfilling. The only thing to be more fulfilled would be if you add more depth to it. Otherwise, you'll just end up being jack of all trades and master of none.
So true, guys. We need the breadth and we need the depth at the same time. That's going to make our lives a lot more fulfilling. And of course, it's the secret to success, because you cannot become successful if you just want to try something and then leave it. So it's so true. And that's all the time we have for. If you're now listening to us, please do us a favor and subscribe right now. I mean, right now, go ahead and subscribe if you're on iTunes.
Right this second, right now.
Right now. Don't even wait. Let's just close this damn podcast and go subscribe on iTunes or Podbean. In order to be able to get our alerts and the latest as soon as they are made available. Thank you very much for listening, and this is Daniel Mulligan. This was Beyond the Present Podcast. Thank you very much.